America runs out of credit in just 2 weeks. The debt ceiling talks in Washington are still stuck in neutral. I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta. And here to keep you up to date with the ins and outs in the endless series of potholes are my two Trifecta co-conspirators, Scott Ott and Bill Whittle. Let's bring them on and get this started. Gents, tons of headlines to catch up with this morning. Scott, let's start with you. The Democrats won't accept any real spending cuts. They talk generalities. That's it. The Republicans won't talk about eliminating tax loopholes. There are just 14 days to go. Can the two sides produce an agreement before August 2nd?
Yes, they can, and they will. And it will be appealing to nobody on the right and to many people on the left, even as the whole time the president goes through this charade of saying that he's really disappointing the people on his side of the aisle. I mean, it's an utter sham. He has used every tacky negotiation technique in the book, including storming out of the meeting as if he were outraged. Yeah, we're going to get an agreement. It'll be something where, sadly, most Republicans will say, why did we send these people there anyway if they weren't really going to do what they said again?
Wow, we're going to get into that last point in a little bit. I'm glad you brought it up. Bill, over at Hot Air, my buddy Jazz Shaw pointed out something particularly nasty. He says once spending is authorized by Congress, it's up to the executive branch, the White House and the Treasury to do the actual spending. This administration plays politics the Chicago way. They'll scare seniors, take money away from GOP support groups, the works. Nothing is off the table. Don't the Republicans in Congress have to play ball now or face a disaster in the next election thanks to these Chicago way politics?
Steve, I'll give you an honest answer to all this. I'm rapidly getting to the point where I just don't care. I just don't care. I think we are reaching the point where we are beginning to be at the mercy of forces that are far bigger than politics. I think we are at the mercy of historical level forces that affect every civilization that has reached its prime and is in so much prosperity and is in so much security that it utterly starts to rot from within. Watching these debt negotiations and especially just the unbelievable mendacity of the president in all of these things has led me to believe that we are looking at something much bigger than just political negotiations, and I'm not sure that political negotiations are going to solve this problem.
Yeah, and I got 14.4 trillion reasons why I think you're right, Bill. Okay, Scott, without a deal, the U.S. Treasury runs out of credit and will have to pay all the federal government's bills with whatever cash it has on hand, plus whatever they can scrape out from under Tim Geithner's sofa cushions. But on Monday, Moody's said Congress should scrap the debt ceiling altogether. Does Moody's have a point? Would it be better to stop this game of chicken forever?
Well, Congress has already scrapped the debt ceiling forever. As we've talked about on other episodes of Trifecta, there's no such thing as a debt ceiling. It's just a little game that we play from time to time where we pretend that we're going to do something about it, and we never do. It always goes up and up and up. Yeah, I don't think this is a myth that somehow the Treasury is going to run out of money. Yes, they may run out of the ability to draw more credit, but they're not going to run out of money. And I really relish the idea of Tim Geithner sitting there with a shoebox in front of him with little envelopes. One says Social Security, the next one says Medicare, the Pentagon, and he opens one up and it actually has cash in it because he's actually now watching his dollars.
I love it. Okay, Bill, without some basic restructuring of Social Security and Medicare, the Wall Street Journal says get ready for a 70% marginal tax rate. That's on all wages to pay for all this debt. But wouldn't that be okay with the 80% of Americans who the president says favor tax hikes?
I'm going to have to go back to my previous answer and just extend it. We are in a life or death battle between two philosophies, and it is the philosophy of whether you should control your money or whether the government should control your money. If you believe that the government should control the money and redistribute the wealth, then there is no end to the tax rate. When I was a teenager, I was briefly dating a girl who was the daughter of a tax exile from Great Britain. You know what his tax rate was one year? It was 104%. Now, you can say that's physically impossible, but it's not physically impossible. They took everything he made in one year, and they took 4% of his holdings of what he would have made in one year. They taxed him 104%. And here's another surprise. He decided to leave Great Britain after they did that to him for a while. He shut all his business down and he just went galt. He just disappeared. It's happening now, and it's going to continue to happen. And we either end this idea of an income tax and this idea that this is the government's money that we just borrow, or we wait for 110% tax rates on people who are not going to remain here. They'll go someplace else. This has happened before. It will happen again, and it will happen here if we don't get down to the fact that this is a clash of ideas.
It absolutely is. I have a feeling November 2012 is going to be the most important election of our lifetimes. Scott, last question for you, and it's a simple one, but I think it gets to the heart of what kind of a deal is going to happen. Do you think the GOP is playing to lose?
Well, I've sometimes said that it seems like the Republicans, the only causes they're willing to fight for are the lost causes. And I don't say that in any sort of glorious way. What I mean is they'll only fight for it if they know they're going to lose. Because then they can go back to their constituents and they can say, I was in there fighting for you, but those darn Democrats or those liberal Republicans or those conservative Republicans, whoever, they can blame somebody else, instead of actually getting in there when they finally have some muscle on their side and fighting for it in a way that wins. They need to fight to win.
That's right. You can't pass the buck when there are no more bucks to pass. That's PJTV's Scott Ott. He's back home in Pennsylvania this week, but wait until you see what he was putting together last week in our Los Angeles studios. You don't want to miss out on that. All right, Bill, you've hinted at this, but I really want to know, where is the Tea Party caucus? Do the Tea Party freshmen get it? Have they fallen into the D.C. morass?
No, I think the Tea Party guys are doing their very best. Didn't they just put a proposal out there that was a Tea Party thing? It's going to fail in the Senate, and Obama promised to veto it, but they're out there trying to cut taxes. And listen, we're going to determine whether or not this country, as we understand it, will survive in 2012. And a lot of people think it's whether or not Barack Obama gets elected, but it will come down to whether or not more fiscally conservative representatives are sent to the House and the Senate. That's what it's going to come down to. You cannot change the entire Senate and the House in one election. You're not supposed to be able to. But either we will continue to put more fiscal conservatives into Congress and get a handle on this and build it down, or historical forces that have brought down every other civilization in history will bring down this one, and we'd better be prepared to build something and have something standing for when the wreckage collapses in smoking ruin around us, and everybody knows it's going to happen, and no one will say it.
Train wreck, slow motion train wreck. That's Declaration Entertainment co-founder Bill Whittle, and best of all, he's brought Afterburner back to PJTV. It's like Christmas in July. All right, folks, it's time for the brutal truth. The GOP has got to get over its refusal to close tax loopholes to get a deal. Simpler taxes are better taxes. That's something Reagan taught everyone with his '86 Tax Simplification Act. But the Democrats have their own problem, too. The Weekly Standard reports that during the negotiations, President Obama talked incessantly and for so long that others often gave up trying to get a word in. Obama dominated one session so completely that only one of the four Republicans spoke, and then only in short spurts. And Dan Mitchell has looked at the president's talking points and decided that so long as he gets what he wants, Obama is flexible. And meanwhile, Republicans have put out 4 detailed plans. The Ryan plan, approved by the House back in January. The McConnell plan, announced last week. The Coburn plan, just out on Monday. And on Tuesday, the House will vote on cap, cut, and balance, which the president has already said he's going to veto. And all without providing any details of his own. So, the Democrats do have a problem. It's the president. So if they're honest about wanting a deal, maybe they ought to tell him to put Joe Biden back in charge. For Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and everyone here at PJTV, I'm Steve Green.